Joining us now to break down what this means is tech expert and managing editor of Android Central, Shruti Shekar. Shruti, Meta cut 11,000 jobs back in November. Can you explain how the company can turn around and spend $40 billion to buy back shares now?
Well, essentially what buying back shares means that you're redirecting the funds that you would typically use for your operations and sort of redirecting your focus. And part of the reason why a company would do something like that is we kind of have to look back at Meta from a get-go. When Meta first did those job cuts, part of the reason was because they were doing a refocus in specific areas of their business. So whether that was metaverse or whether that was VR, those were areas that Meta really wanted to focus on. And so when you shift your focus on that, you also automatically shift where you're putting your money in terms of your operational expenses. And so by actually spending less on things that might not necessarily bring back a revenue, you're basically rebuying those shares and in turn would increase the share price and value, which actually is a good thing for shareholders because not only are they going to be getting money back, but it means that the company is not spending more money on things that might not necessarily be successful in the long run.
Meta says it expects to spend less this year. It seems like many mega tech companies are looking to cut costs after bulking up during the pandemic. And while today was a great day for the company, do you think this momentum will last?
It really depends on company to company. Specifically with Meta, I think they are really trying to cut back and figuring out what they really want to do in the future in terms of what that company means. Does it mean focusing on Facebook and Instagram, which are their social media companies? Does it mean focusing on metaverse or VR? And then, of course, while Meta might be doing well with its stock options and with the way it's doing in the markets right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that other companies are going to do the same thing and be in the same position. We know every single tech company has faced major job cuts, whether it's Amazon, Google, Shopify. I mean, you can go down the list and every single company has had major cuts. And that's because all of these companies are trying to figure out, well, what is the next step and where do we see our company going in the future? So I don't necessarily think every tech company is going to fail, but I do think that there's going to be a monumental shift in the way that they're thinking. And where they want to invest their money and whether or not where they're investing their money is going to actually bring back revenue, because I think that's the most important thing for these companies.
As we've mentioned, Meta is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. How are these platforms holding up to TikTok? And what do you see as the future of Instagram and Facebook?
It's really interesting because we are seeing that increase of more users flocking to TikTok. And part of that is because of that short form content, that really quick turnaround of content. And advertisers are really seeing a lot of revenue. They see TikTok as a revenue making machine, which obviously is a good thing for them and for content creators because they'll be earning a lot of money. And that has sort of changed the way that we look at social media. I mean, Facebook in itself has had a lot of issues with trust, harvesting user data to give to advertisers, misinformation. And we saw that trickling down with Instagram as well. Body dysmorphia, eating disorders, all of these topics came to rise, especially on a platform like Instagram, which is very heavily focused on images. And so there was a lot of trust that was sort of lost in the last couple of years with a lot of that news building up and people wanting to find alternative platforms that weren't necessarily associated to a company like Meta.
Thanks so much for joining us, Shruti Shekar.
Thank you so much for having me.